The only thing I want to say is how important it is to keep it simple. Not only your work, but your life, and life is your business, of course. But if you bring the simplicity to your work, you'll also bring your innocence in a way. I think the worst thing about any aspect of life, whether it's your work or your day-to-day life, is cynicism. And I can give you examples of how cynicism has destroyed things, how cynicism has made certain things impossible to present on the stage or in film. But the only place to start is our own cynicism, you know. And believe it or not, even attitude can be cynicism. The attitude of I know it all, or I can handle it, or I'm on top of this, I'm all right, Jack. That's all attitudes that come out of, and cynicism is a result of not taking care of being simple. We get scared and we get cynical. We get sarcastic. It's all in the area of boredom, cynicism, sarcasm. They can work very well in humor. I mean, there are certain comics who are, that's all they do, right? It's nice. See, I'm 70, and all the names are there. I got more names in here than you'd ever want to know. But they don't always come out on cue. Gene Hackman, who was an actor I worked with, the very first thing I ever did on camera. Nobody ever saw it because he was banned out of cynicism of some sort. And I'll talk about Gene in a minute in that project. But Gene Hackman has once said, when he goes from one movie to the next, he finds it important not to carry baggage from one movie to the next. By that, if you found a really good stage turn in one movie, the temptation is to carry it to the next movie, or to exploit it, or to, if you shave your head in one movie, to keep that going, you know. Anything like that, he tried not to do that, which means he walks on the set the first day like he doesn't know anything about anything. Now, I've only worked with Gene once, and I don't know whether he had developed that great philosophy at that time. But I admire it so much that I say, okay, when I do walk on the set and I feel like I don't know anything, that's all right. But that's really where I should start. I should know my text to some extent, you know. I should know enough to respect it and not be cynical about it. Who wrote this crap, you know? Because that's all we have. In the beginning was the word. That's all we got in life. That's all we got, you know, as a society. That's all we got as artists is the words. I couldn't make them up. The great thing about being an actor for me is very simply, I can go around saying stuff that, or as Whoopi Goldberg used to say, she'd get arrested for it, she said it privately, but say stuff that I would never imagine saying. Because somebody dedicated to writing, dedicated to expressing, dedicated to lifting language and expression to a poetic level. How many of you saw a movie called Titus? Yeah? Oh boy, good, great. Well, I guess that says it. I think that it says it in terms of what you go to do. Not this language, because Titus is one of those Shakespeare plays. People debate that, but I accept, yeah, he wrote that. He probably had some bad drafts the day he wrote it. It was a weird play. But when it got to the screen, it's even weirder in the most wonderful way. And kind of a movie you see, and you say, gee, I wish I'd been a part of that. I wish I could have brought my energy, whatever my energy is, to that kind of work. And that's the way I feel about it. Because Julie, is it? The director? Yeah.
The director.
You've seen their version of The Lion King, which is quite wonderful, the stage version of The Lion King. She brought right away the impact of imagery to that film, to that screen, and it took over so well that, you know, when you had a motorcycle coming in with a team of horses and a chariot, it didn't matter. You didn't say, well, that's innovative. That was the world, you know. And she was able to let imagery speak, not louder than words, but suggested by the words. You know. Shakespeare was not aware he wrote that good stuff when he wrote it. He was not aware those characters would be wearing those kinds of costumes, but they were when he wrote it. And it's limitless. Another Julie will bring something more interesting to it eventually. You all will bring something more interesting. What's great about August Wilson is that it's irrelevant that he's black. In fact, he's black and white. He's half black and half white. He has chosen, he's opted to speak for the black side of himself. And he does it beautifully by using the theater to tell a story, a black family story for every decade of our history. And I think he's got 2 to go. He's going to go back to the 1900s, then he's going to come back to the present. But he's done one for all the decades of our history, of America, I mean, not just black history. What's also great about him is, like Athol Fugard, who was writing at a time of very dangerous apartheid in his country. He was able to write about people, you know, of color without getting arrested. And he was able to give them dignity, as long as he didn't preach overthrow of the government, and as long as he didn't use polemic. And August does that. As strongly as August feels about black people, he does not use polemic in his work. So when Headley talks about what the white man did, he also gets upset about what he did with when they stepped on his plant in his little garden, which is really why I'm bringing it up. Not many of you saw us. I don't want to lose you here, but King Headley is a Pittsburgh guy of the 80s, mid-80s. He's a working man. He's been in jail. In fact, most of the people he knows have been in jail. Not because they were black, but because they live in that same world that you see in The Sopranos, right? Same world, except The Sopranos are a little better organized. Same where you don't know when one day next where they're going to land in jail. And just the slightest thing can save them one way or the other. Well, for, you know, Headley, and that's all I need to say about it. I want to get through the leading actor, Brian Stokes. You might have seen him in musicals.
Ragtime.
Yeah, Ragtime and
Kiss Me Kate.
Shakespeare, another Shakespeare, yeah, Kiss Me Kate.
Kiss Me Kate.
Well, I sat there and I was mesmerized. He's the kind of actor that I want to watch even when somebody else is talking. So when he looked at the script, he must have said, I want to see where I'm not talking to and see what my work is there. I mean, listening, yes, but he has some work going on when he wasn't talking. And he must have known that. He must have known he had a responsibility beyond the dialogue. I just found that the first act of that play, I'm going back and see it again. Just the first act. Because I know August a little bit. He still is working on how to end his plays. Most great writers don't know how to end it. They don't know how to finish off great characters except kill them. Often kill them off stage, right? And August is still working on that. And in his attempt to wind things up, which he shouldn't have to do. He should write serials. August should write not just for TV, but in a way he does. He's writing a serialization of the American black family. But I just want to say, you want to see acting, nothing like Brian has done in anything else he's done, I'm sure. The way he walks, the way he talks, and it's not ethnic. He's a Pittsburgh guy. He's not a black Pittsburgh guy. He's a Pittsburgh guy. And it's important, if you're going to do a play or a movie, is to know something about the culture in which the story is set. And Brian, I mean, the way he walks, the way he talks, he captured it. And there's much more. It's worth going to see. That's probably the hardest thing, because there's no character without dialogue. Dialogue is going on. How many in this room?
Probably 50.
50 dialogues going on constantly. Your head is going, you know, and to bring that to your character is the hardest thing, isn't it? You know, because you're thinking about what the director said to you yesterday. You're thinking about all the stuff that doesn't matter. You're thinking about, and I guess you say, how do I prepare? If I do, thank you, because I don't know how. And I can speak best about the stage better than film. You prepare for film mainly by learning your words. But this is how simple it is. I did a play where I met the cousin of one of the men who works the camera here. The play was John Steinbeck's of Mice and Men. I found myself, when we got to Broadway, aware that what I did before I went out from the dressing room and stood behind a dark curtain for at least 5 to 10 minutes. I became aware when I said to myself one day, what the hell are you doing here? Why is a grown man standing behind a curtain in the dark, just standing there? And without intellectualizing it, I realized, yeah, I got to do this every night, to let go of me and let the character come on. And luckily, I was playing Lenny, the dummy, in Mice and Men. Lenny doesn't have a mental process, so you got to let it go. He has an imagery process. Lenny has more concentration than anybody I've ever met in film or in fiction or life. He's totally focused on soft things. He doesn't say them, but he thinks them. He images them. And my job in preparing was to simply, and I don't know to what extent I can fulfill that character by walking on stage, relaxed and with it all shut off. But it's the best I could do in preparation. Kevin Costner calls film production the wave. Your character is your surfboard and you're the surfer. And they say, action. And sometimes you're ready, usually you're not. And when you're not, you get washed out, right? What do you call it in surfing? You wipe out. You wipe out. That's what usually happens, because all that machinery, which has been determined to be necessary, you know, especially by people who want to eventually get something to film to a theater, that machinery is important. I did a movie called Garden of Stone. You didn't see it because it wasn't as successful as we hoped it would be. It's about James Caan and Angelica Houston. We shot a lot of it in Arlington Cemetery, which is, for the military, it is sacred ground. Our director of photography had Parkinson's, and he had to move very slow. But he was a man that Francis Ford Coppola really wanted for this film. Francis was directing it. So we were out there in Arlington Cemetery. The sun is going down, and the camera is not yet ready. Oddly enough, when it's ready, the actors have only 5 minutes left before the sun is gone. This would happen over and over again. I mean, the wave took that long and nothing you can do about it. That's the wave. It's not ready. There shouldn't be any element in that wave that doesn't belong there, doesn't somehow support what we're all doing, right? And I hear that you carry that right through in the process of becoming a part of film, especially as an actor. But you shouldn't expect anything. You shouldn't go to a set expecting anything, because then, you know, that's what young people, especially, think about Hollywood. They expect something. It can be glamorous, first of all, and it's not. It can be, but it's don't expect it to be. So it just leave your expectations behind as well as your sentences. It'll all work, because it's not, you know. I can't stand to see a movie pan and to think of all those people who did all that hard work to get it on. Even though it's a piece of crap, they worked very hard, and that's what I focus on. That's what I really respect. Too bad it wasn't better. And all of our job is to somehow make it better, if we can, if you have any power, through fulfilling your role better, or you can't do much else. You can't advise your other fellow actors. You can't advise the director. Speaking of, in this connects to the previous subject about expectations. You shouldn't ever let the audience come in with expectation and get away with it either. You should always shock the hell out of them, or at least surprise them. You know, and a movie that does that at every turn is. You never think about the stuff that, you know, how well is it written, how good is the acting. No, you're just constantly, you know, reacting to it, and that's what the experience should be. You know, there's some interesting answers. My dad is an actor. You could say I followed in his footsteps, or that I'm a stutterer, and in the attempt to regain the power of speech, I discovered how fun it was, how important it was, and I you know, I can't stop. And words became important. So making a living with words became important. But those are two pretty interesting, but you know, they don't mean anything. I know, being a farm kid, the word art was never spoken. We never had the concept of art. Luckily, because in those kinds of communities, art kind of exists in a way, in folk art, craft. Something is fulfilled about art. Only when you get to the urban area do you need art in a museum where you can go see it. So I know Picasso did that, because that's not what's out there. Somebody took care, took focus to define some feeling or thought. So we had none of that. But I know that for everybody, probably, the need to express yourself exists. Even when you do it well, the need to. As a stutterer, I wrote poetry secretly, and that's what started it, I think. In having tried to write poetry, I can recognize it when I see it in somebody else's writing, and again, it's in a way that alchemical change, or I guess Campbell, the mythologist, Joseph Campbell said, life is prose up to a point, then it becomes poetry. When you deal with ritual, it becomes poetry. Religion, it becomes poetry. Otherwise, it's sort of dull prose. It goes on and on and on. But there has to be an alchemical change. I had to divide it up between through 3 stages. One study was not complete, because it's never complete. Once I I'd gotten to the point where study was supposed to lead to something else. If you become an amateur, and if you live in an area where there's some stock theater, that's great if you can be a part of that. And you won't get the leading role. So you'll get to nail some flats together and bit parts and so on. At some point, you have to go from amateur to professional. And that's part of the hardest. Can I make a living at this? And the only way to prove it to yourself, and to be honest with yourself, is to get a role that's kind of hard to handle, and you make it work. You prove to yourself that you can create something according to a writer's vision, and you can bring it to an audience. And once you know that, it's a pretty good feeling. And it doesn't mean you're going to make any money, but it means that now you can go and make that your profession. And I suppose that's about where you are, all of you are now. Given the chance you have to put things on film, very important. When I was your age, I was a lot older actually, came out of the Army, and 25 years old, every Sunday they had a religious show for every religion. And they often had people reading passages from the Bible, reading poetry. And that was a great opportunity for actors to go on, no matter what your religion was, go on and do stuff for those shows. I guess it still exists, do they? The Sunday morning religious shows?
Yeah, some.
Then soap operas, good part. But whatever you can, you knew that once you'd gone to that amateur stage, where you were a journeyman, you had to get in front of the camera somehow. Luckily, that supplied you here. That's you have a chance to try that here. I don't know the point yet. The only time I know the point of watching dailies is when I'm doing something physical that has to match or it has to look convincing, like swinging a baseball bat. I got to go see did I cut it or not. If it didn't, I got to ask to do something about it. Otherwise, I don't know what the point of watching is. It's dangerous for some people. A lot of directors don't allow it. Still, I would assume. Like I didn't know I had hair sticking out my nose until I went to dailies, and now that's all I think about. And I play the makeup person to please take care of it. The directors don't want people to be bogged down by that. I guess if you're from means, you're probably in a bad place. If you have family that can support you no matter how successful you are at finding work for yourself, that's very dangerous because that means you can kid yourself along, right? But most of us have to pay our own bills, so certainly after 20. Even when you move home, you got to pay your own bills, right? And that puts a nice task on you. You got to do it to get off the pot. And sometimes we have not been honest enough with ourselves during the development of our career to get off the pot or to stay on the, determined to really stay on the pot. Because it's going to happen. And only you know that. Only the actor knows that. Your dad and your mom can't tell you. Your friends, the critics can't. The critics can never tell you. They'll try, but they can't tell you. So that's the hardest turn. Being that honest with yourself. Do I go on? I think at that stage I came down here to NYU and took vocational guidance, and they headed me toward not plumbing. I was expecting that, but architecture. And so I enrolled in Pratt, and I was ready just to give it up. And I got a job out in the Midwest, in an amateur theater. Put it back on track. But you got to be honest enough to say, well, maybe I'm not going to cut it, and find the next best thing you really want to do. Also, you can look at being an actor like, I don't know, the dentist who is satisfied to stay out in the Midwest, a town nobody ever heard of, fixing people's teeth. You know, he feels good about it, and you got to be able to accept. I'll go to summer stock and do plays in front of people every summer of my life, and that's got to be good enough. You know? Again, don't get caught up in the expectation business, especially about fame and money. I know fame and money drives us all. The desire for, that's why I buy lottery tickets every week. You know? It's about like buying lottery tickets, you know. Because in terms of the machinery in Hollywood that does control a lot of the Western world, I mean really controls it in terms of culturally. It determines the kind of movies that we see, the kind of movies that make it, which determines the kind of movies going to be done next year, the spin-offs and so on. There's no wisdom there. There's no wisdom, and shouldn't be. There was it's a factory. They're not about inspiration. So, thank God there are independent filmmakers that keep inspiring that machinery. That there's a job to be done. That's noble and honorable. I lost my track there for a minute. You know, there's an old expression. Yeah. Get over it.
Get over it.
No, but you know, what was it in Moonstruck when the guy says he's in love with? Snap out of it. Yeah. It's not so easy to snap out of your skin color. But in a way, you got to get over it. When I saw Brian work last night, and Brian is not totally 100% African, any more than August is, but whatever his cultural background is, he has lived almost non-ethnic. It's like he's a qualified black guy. You can tell by the way he talks, by the way he behaves. He doesn't play the black stuff. He can have. It's like the gay thing. An actor who doesn't play the gay stuff doesn't have to, but he can, right? If you're departing from what you really are, you're still taking the soul of what you really are with you, in whatever sex or whatever race or whatever culture your character is, and you got to know that culture very well. The only challenge for you really is not about casting, but you got to surprise them. You got to know so much about Maggie the cat and Hot Ten Roof that you could walk in and say, "Oh God, that's Maggie the cat." This Southern belle. But I thought you were a white girl. She's not a white girl. She's Asian. But you got to surprise them, and that makes it hard because people who rely on accuracy of ethnic casting get away with a lot. You know, TV is full of blondes, right? And when you're not blonde, you make yourself blonde. If your nose isn't perfect, you make your nose perfect. And that's not acting, is it? And you can do it by acting. When I'm saying, watching Brian, I saw a Pittsburgh guy. I didn't see a black guy, or a black Pittsburgh guy. I saw a Pittsburgh guy, and I know Pittsburgh guys. So that's a challenge, and it's a wonderful challenge, especially in a multicultural society, one that hasn't gotten all this stuff sorted out, especially, you know, in terms of priorities and racism and so on. But don't get hung up on that. Please don't get hung up on it. It's like the chapter about the voice. Don't either be conscious of it or conceited about it. The two very opposite ends of the pole. But find ways to surprise the hell out of it.